Javelins, freelancers, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another report from Anthem Universe. I am one of your hosts, Ogaz, and today we're going to take a look at just something very quick, a quick update in fact from Reddit. In particular, our friend Ben Irving, in fact lead producer out at Austin, has released a very interesting update to Reddit, in particular talking about what they have learned from the alpha stages. Now of course it was confirmed some time back in the last, 6 weeks that the game had hit alpha, and of course there had been some testing involved. Anthem Universe was lucky to be one of the parties who have engaged in some elements of testing for the EA Game Changers program. We can't really say anything more than that. What we can say and tell you is that there are some significant changes and adjustments from feedback that has been received from these events, and I think all of us at Anthem Universe are very, very excited, because I think it's quite clear that already, even at this early stage of conversation, we are in alpha. They're already receiving, already acknowledging, and already engaging on feedback. Some of the things that they talked about in particular Ben addressed was loot, and in reference he has said, alpha players let us know that during their time in Anthem, loot drops weren't frequent enough and were hard to spot out in the world. So they've done some passes and looked at frequency of loot drops, and I think, to be fair, that's going to be a critical point. Everyone, I think, agreed unanimously in previous trailers and gameplay loops that we want to see loot. You can't deny the glory, the passion, and the anticipation that people have for collecting loot, for seeing that beautiful shiny weapon gear set or whatever it might be appear. There's got to be plenty of it, and it's got to keep us going through Elder Game and beyond. So loot is important, and it's pleasing that they've already identified that from the feedback it has not been probably as significant as it could be. Elsewhere they've mentioned they're hosting more focused testing sessions on loot, and in particular they were making some more tweaks. And an interesting point here, something that wasn't definitely clear previously, something that we did learn as well in the recent 3 weeks, was that when you return to Tarsus, as you know, you will return to the Forge in order to collect on your loot acquired in your journey. You can also, of course, do that to the Strider. So that was relatively confirmed that the Strider was your forward base, but it wasn't always confirmed that the Strider was going to be a point of return for loot. So it's good to just reconfirm that that is the case. Secondly, on the agenda was missions. Ben Irving talked a little bit about missions, in particular difficulty. Now you'll recall in the most recent stream that the guys, I think, were running at freelancer difficulty, which is the medium difficulty of the opening introduction difficulties that you can select. And on 2 players, to be fair, they weren't struggling, but they certainly were being challenged, shall we say, pushed to certain limits. Mike Gamble nearly going down at one point in the gameplay stream. But they have said they've limited the difficulty of the first few missions and cut down on how many different kinds of creatures were roaming. So up until this point, we've seen a scaled back rendition of the game with limited creatures out there, and it was quite clear from the feedback during alpha that we wanted to see more, and it's quite clear that Ben and the team have responded to that. They're upping that element, including passes across difficulty levels and creating and introducing further creatures across the world. Again, I think that's going to be a good thing. We know time and time again, whether it's Destiny, whether it's Division, whether it's other MMO or I guess MMO-like games, we understand that loot is important, but also is an ongoing count of encounters, engagement, enemies, mission, and activities. We need to be kept busy, and I feel at the moment they're getting it. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the future streams. They also mentioned that mission content in the alpha was limited, so some players felt there wasn't a lot to do, and they said they're going to add more things into that. So I suspect that conversation is about free play. I don't know precisely, but I think we'll be talking more and seeing more of that in the near future. I think it's important to note that in the gameplay stream that we just saw recently, it was very centric on free play, and there are a lot of people out there that were excited to see that, but I still think there's going to be elements of the community very excited to see more from Anthem, more on the solo play, more on the campaign as that progresses. I'm sure we will. The third subject from Ben was, of course, progression. So in this, he talked about leveling systems, how to spend skill points, and how to use forge and equipment gear were not always clear There seems to be a clarity issue with the UI and certain elements of using the game, engaging with loot and engaging with equipment. And whilst I can't really comment to that in terms of my experiences, it's quite clear that the feedback to Ben and the team has been that there is that element of disengagement with some of the systems in the game. So they've mentioned things like leveling actions, understanding what level your javelin is, understanding the gear and equipment that you're at right now. I think this is important. This is going to be critical. I think for you and I, the guys are going to jump into this game and chew it up. It's going to be great fun. But I think for our friends, for the guys that we want to encourage to join us, we're going to want to see progression. We're going to want to see these systems in place. We're going to want to see concise, clear UI. Shakespeare once said that brevity is the soul of wit. And indeed, this is going to be a critical point for Anthem. We're going to have to see some brevity, some clarity on those menus. It's going to have to be easy for anyone to be able to pick up. We want this game to survive. We want additional players, and we want people to go out there, whether they're new, old, fresh, young, old, etc. players, to really jump in. Other notes Ben also mentioned here was that players asked to extend the amount of time they can be airborne, and that is definitely the case on the Reddits, on the Discord, on the Twitter. The universal conversation is, can we extend flight time? I myself, with what I've seen and engaged, I'm not too fussed with that, but I understand that for a long-term game with a long tail, you probably want to have abilities or unlocks to allow for a buff in that area to increase the flight time. So I suspect they're going to be taking a look at something like that. Maybe it's an ability, or maybe it's a buff that you'll be engaging with your javelin suit to allow you to do that. The last point that was addressed in the post by Ben was playing with friends, which is, well, kind of important. We know that BioWare have stressed the idea of our world, my story. It is very, very apparent that BioWare need to push this, and they need to get the play with friends concept right. And it's good to see they're on that. They've mentioned they've added several systems that they think will help, considering join and leave notifications when there's a change up, tutorials, and making add, kick, leave features accessible in different places. They also mentioned they're iterating on some UI elements to help with finding teammates and to make sure that players don't get stuck or lost by their friends. In summary, you can kind of see that these are very quality of life conversations. They are important for a game in terms of development. It's quite refreshing and a little bit surprising, to be honest, to see this kind of candor this early. I'm not blowing BioWare's horn here, but I think it's rather impressive to see that they're making admissions to information that has been spotted so early in the alpha. And to be fair, a lot of people, some very clever people out there, have also identified that outside of the alpha, just through gameplay trailers, cinematics, and reviewing the streams that we've seen just recently. So look, I think, in short, this is an exciting update. It primarily gives us some insights into the quality of life elements that will be added to this game, and gives us some good, I guess, idea for what BioWare is really working on, what adjustments they've made, and what tweaks we can expect to see in the full release as it draws very, very close now. 22nd of February, not far away. Guys, we're going to leave it there, but we're very excited to see more. They have confirmed that there will be more streams occurring between the BioWare team, more guests in terms of the developers on point to play and engage, and of course more gameplay, views and whatnot from Anthem. I am Ogaz, this is Anthem Universe. Javelins, freelancers, we will see you next over the wall.